Most people picture prepping for something huge, something apocalyptic, end of the world. But the truth is, what you have the most likelihood of experiencing are everyday events. Did you know that every 1 in 23 seconds, fire departments in the United States are responding to a house fire? In fact, in your lifetime, if you live in the United States, you have a 1 in 4 chance of having a house fire. And that's just fires. Every 40 seconds, somebody has a stroke. And every 34 seconds, somebody has a heart attack. And all of these can be apocalyptic events for you personally. So let's start close to home. I said every 1 in 23 seconds, somebody is experiencing a house fire in the United States. So by the time you finish this video, dozens of families across the United States will be displaced. And the odds are you have a 25% chance of having that happen to you. So it's kind of not if, but when for many of us. I know this firsthand. I was one out of those 4. My family, we had a very huge house fire and was displaced from our home for over 9 months. It really can be devastating. And one of the things I was so glad of was that I had full replacement costs in my homeowner's insurance. Without that, recovery would have been so much more difficult financially. So I want you to look around in your house. Do you have fire alarms that are actually working? Do you have a fire extinguisher right next to your kitchen or in your kitchen? And we already talked about go bags, right? Have it with your essentials. And don't forget fire drills. Practice them with your family. How can you get out of your house lickety-split? And go around and regularly inspect both outside and inside for any fire hazards, such as frayed wires, lint in your dryer, which, did you know, 2,900 fires a year is caused by not sufficiently removing the lint from your home clothes dryer. Cleaning that vent regularly is one of the most important things you can do to prevent a house fire. So be proactive. I'm interested. Have you ever had a fire scare at your home? What happened and how did you cope? Please comment below. Now let's talk health. Every 40 seconds in the US, somebody has a stroke. Every 34 seconds in the United States, somebody has a heart attack. And they say 1 out of 4 20-year-olds may experience a disability before they reach retirement age. I think that's something that most of us don't plan for, but believe me, it can be life-altering if any of that occurs. So what's the prep here? Well, one of the things is make sure you have good health insurance. You might want to consider disability insurance also. Savings, so important in a lot of these disasters to have good savings, at least that will cover 6 months of your expenses. And even something as simple as keeping track of what medications you take and have that available with you in case you need to make a trip to the emergency room. All of that can help. But there's a part that we just don't discuss enough, and that is prevention. Are you eating a healthy diet? Are you exercising regularly? Do you have annual visits with your primary care physician? You know, taking care of your health now is the best way to avoid or lessen health emergencies in the future. What about if you live alone? Well, then it's a good idea to have one of those smart watches that can call for help if you need it, and learn CPR. It might save somebody's life in your household or outside your home. And make sure you have discussions with your family. And if you do have a health problem, share it with them so they know what to do and what you want them to do. Millions of Americans get laid off every year. You know, we saw it in 2008 during the pandemic, and now we're seeing it again because of AI replacing positions. And reality is, no one is untouchable. So again, we go back to, do you have an emergency fund? You know, at least 6 months of your expenses stashed away. Do you have a side hustle? You know, in my lifetime, luckily, I have never been without employment, but that wasn't the case for my husband. I think maybe 4 times he was. But luckily, I always had side hustles. During college and a little after, I was a bartender. Then I did bookkeeping on the side, and I also taught classes at night at the local university. So it's important to have multiple sources of income. You know, don't have everything in one egg basket. And make sure you have a full pantry of food that can last you for a period of time. That can also save you money when you're unemployed. And while you're employed, think about your career readiness. Do you have an up-to-date resume? Do you maintain relationships with people in your field, your professional organization, LinkedIn? Those are all important for finding a future job. And if you do become unemployed, don't forget about your health insurance. Maybe you are able to use COBRA through where you worked, or maybe you have to go on the marketplace. But make sure you have health insurance. That is really important. Here's one thing people often forget, and that is cyber fraud or identity theft. You know that last year alone, 1.1 million Americans reported identity theft. Just imagine your bank account is frozen. You can't use your credit cards. I mean, think about what that can do to you. And unfortunately, during that time, the bills will keep rolling in. And it can happen faster than you think. It's so rare if you ever meet somebody who has never had something fraudulent occur on one of their credit cards. Now I had, it's kind of a little humorous in one way, when I was on vacation on my last cruise, when I arrived, it turned out I got the email that someone was committing fraud with my credit card. And we're not talking little fraud. They were making very generous contributions to charitable organizations. It might be the opera. And I mean, we're talking, $1,000 or more at a time. And this was occurring, boom, 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 while I'm on an airplane flying to Bali. Well, luckily, my credit card covered it and took care of it, but I can't help wonder, is this like a Robin Hood fraudster? Any of you have that type of fraudulent occurrences on your credit card? Because believe me, that is the first time it's happened to me that they were charitable contributions. So what can we do to prevent this? Yep, strong passwords, and we all know that. Don't have the same password for your ATM card that you got when you got it 15 years ago. And two-factor authentication is also important. Back up your important documents. Check regularly to make sure there are no unexpected withdrawals or expenses on your cards or in your checking account. And again, keep some cash on hand just in case you need it, because you cannot touch any of the money that was in your checking account or your credit cards. And something that I think is really, really important is to freeze your credit card reports, and do it with all 3 agencies: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So thieves can't open a new credit card in your name. It's free to do. It only takes about 10 minutes. So please, at a minimum, at least do that. And if you travel or in the public, you might want to use a VPN. It's kind of like putting a internet locked tunnel on whatever you're doing on the internet, and that way people can't see what you're doing, especially if you're accessing your checking account or your credit card reports. And the last one that I'm going to discuss, it's hard to talk about, and that is the loss of life of a loved one. But we all know it's a reality. And unfortunately, beside the emotional toll, also 1 in 3 families experience a financial strain after such a death has occurred. When a loved one dies, the grief can be overwhelming, but there can be also particular challenges to make it even more difficult. I've lost what I call my entire upline. You know, grandparents, parents, all my aunts and uncles, both my brothers and my sister, all my upline gone. So I can sympathize. But you know what? It is important to have life insurance to protect your spouse or your other loved ones, to have your family know what you want for your burial arrangements and what you want for end-of-life decisions. Do you want to be put on life support or not? All of those are important discussions that most of us are hesitant to discuss with our loved ones. And often we end up not discussing them, and then it's too late. So preparing things in advance does not take away the grief, but it can help a little bit ease the burden. And you know what is one of the most important preps you can do? Give your loved ones a hug and always say, "I love you," because you never know when that is your last encounter with them or the last words they'll ever hear. And if you want to go a little deeper into this topic, I also have a video called Final Prep, Easy Free Ways to Avoid Probate. I think it ties in a lot to what we're talking about here. So whether it's a house fire, a health crisis, job loss, or identity theft, I think the message is clear. If you're not prepping, you are gambling. And the stakes? Your health, your finances, and definitely your peace of mind. If you need to prep in any of these areas, start small. Pick one of these areas and take action today, because the best time to prepare is before your life gets turned upside down. Now, here's that video I was talking about.